friends, and welcome to What the Fringe, the podcast dedicated to all things Fringe theater. I'm your host, Lauren Hantz. Each week, I visit with a Fringe artist to hear all about their endeavors and gain insight into their process. This week, I'm visiting with Chris Grace, whose most recent Fringe production was 27 Hours. 27 Hours debuted at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival this past August, and every day, Chris presented a new show at the Fringe. Yes, you heard that right. A brand new show. It ranged from stand-up to storytelling to, everything that you could think of. And he did that for 27 days at the Edinburgh Fringe.
And then I somehow got it in my head that basically while I was trying to figure out a bunch of QLab audio cues for this 4-minute bit that I'd written, that I was like, you know what? I almost think it'd be easier for me to just do a new show every day than to figure out these QLab cues. And that was just a really random notion. And then I emailed Assembly to say it was the deadline for the program. The printed program was coming up. And they sent me the proof for it. And I said, could I change it to this description? And I texted a few friends of mine saying, hey, what do you think about if I wrote a new show every day? Like, what would that be like? And but to be fair, about half or more of my friends were like, yo, you should do it. It'd be great. And then some people were like, you should do it. That sounds impossible. You should do it. And no one was really genuinely like, you shouldn't do it. But a lot of people were sort of horrified by the idea. And so the fact that so many people reacted in a way that was like, oh, that sounds crazy. And when I was sending them the email to say, like, could I change my description to this? I got a bunch of butterflies in my stomach. And I was like, ooh, this sounds really scary. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it then.
Chris Grace is best known for playing Jerry on Superstore and recently appeared in The Residence on Netflix. He writes for and appears on Dropout frequently and debuted his comedy special Chris Grace as Scarlett Johansson on The Service last year. His solo show, Sardines, a comedy about death, will run at the Huntington in Boston this October and November. Chris, welcome to What the Fringe.
Hello, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
I know. I'm so excited. We've been trying to get you on for a while and our paths have had trouble syncing up. And I am so glad to have you here. It's so exciting.
Yeah, just squeaking in right at the end.
Yeah. That's so great. Well, we got connected because my boss at Comedy Sports, where I do here in Houston, I started doing Fringe and he was like, you need to talk to Chris Grace. He is Mr. Fringe. And I was like, great, introduce me to him. And then as soon as I started getting in touch with you, I started seeing you everywhere, Chris. I saw you on The Residence. I was on a plane and I can't remember. It's a show with two girls. You played a bowling alley attendant.
You're talking about Broad City.
I was sitting on a plane. I randomly was like, oh, I've heard of the show. I clicked one of the episodes and then your face. And I was like, that's Chris Grace. So you were joining me on my flight.
Glad to be there.
I know. I've seen you everywhere. It's so exciting. So that's super, super, super cool. So I'm very excited to have you here. Well, let's talk about, you've been performing for a long time. When did you decide hey, I'm a performer. This is what I'm going to do with my life?
I picked that pretty early. I went to college and got a drama degree and I did various freelance jobs and stuff after graduating college, but I never really seriously entertained a different profession. I was living in New York, so I was just doing stuff to make money and pay rent and stuff like that. But I never really had the super strong interest in anything else. I had corporate jobs that I did pretty well at and had a pretty good career going, but it was just to make enough money to live in New York. As
one does as a performer. So you live in LA and as we said, you do lots of film and television, but you also do Fringe. What's the draw to doing Fringe when you also have this kind of flourishing career in the film and television world?
The draw for doing Fringe is that it's still the most artistic month of the year for me. And if I could do the type of work that I do at Fringe for a career year round, I would. And I'm sort of close to that. I mean, theater doesn't pay that well, but essentially, could you do theater year round to make a living? And it's a very lower to middle class living when you look at the 12 months. I mean, theater can pay great for 30 days at a time. And then there's 4 months until your next gig. I also just love Fringe for both the output, both making you do something for 27 days in a row, but also the input of seeing and being exposed to all sorts of different shows and even genres you never get. You know, at Fringe, there's a form of circus and clown that you can't really get in most cities in the US. So it's just good to see what people are working on around the world.
Yeah. I always feel like the US is a bit behind in like the way like Fringe operates and what Fringe does. And then the types of kind of arts, like we're definitely behind in clowning and circus arts and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I live in LA, so we're kind of there on clowning. We definitely don't have the same kind of circus. I would say mechanically, the Fringe festivals in America aren't as good as Edinburgh. And then I would say stand-up, we're probably ahead. And I would say improv, we're way ahead.
Yes, absolutely. Agreed. I would say LA and like Philly are like our clown towns here in the US. I love clowning so much. I think it's a very, very cool art form. How did you discover Fringe?
I went to Fringe first with Baby Wants Candy, which is a musical improv group that's been going since like 2005 or 6 or something like that. So I would say my first 5 to 8 years of doing Fringe were just through Baby Wants Candy.
Nice. And then how did you decide you wanted to start doing your own shows? And was Sardines your first show or Scarlett Johansson?
Scarlett Johansson was the first show. I had always toyed with the idea. I had a producer friend who basically put me up to the idea in 2023 because I had put out some stand-up and he saw some clips of my stand-up and said, "Oh, you should do a solo show." And so he sort of said, "I will be sort of a benefactor to you doing a show. I'll help you produce it. I'll help pay for it." And then about halfway through, he dropped out of it completely after I had obligated myself already. So I ended up paying, I mean, both my shows were either self-funded or crowdfunded. And I haven't had anybody like sort of come in with a spare 20 grand to help me out.
Right. Well, and now have you kind of made a name for yourself there in Edinburgh? Does that help you? How does that like impact with your budgeting and your marketing and ticket sales and all of that?
It definitely helps with ticket sales. It doesn't really help with budgeting. It helped with marketing in the sense that this year I only bought one outdoor poster and I didn't really do any flyering. Without paying for advertising and marketing, I will break even. I'll actually end up probably making a couple grand because the marketing, promotion, publicity costs are like so expensive there.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to get to that point where you're not having to do all of that.
Yeah, I mean, this year was really heartening in the sense that I didn't really do any big promotional advertising push and still averaged a decent amount of tickets, which meant that I could have some confidence that in the future I could do that again, which makes the financial considerations a lot more manageable. But also what was nice, because there wasn't any advertising push, I wasn't getting people coming to the show that didn't want to. You had to discover my show. You had to search for me in the Fringe website to know that I was doing a show. I was getting some publicity from the shows that I directed and helped produce, but there really wasn't any presence in terms of marketing push. So the people that showed up were really warm and I think really wanted to be at my show. They weren't just like, "Oh, we're here, let's just go see this random thing."
Right. When they're fans, right? Like they know you from the other stuff. So they trust what you're going to do. And that takes years of being there, right? And doing the thing. So let's talk about the show that you did this year, which was 27 hours. You wrote a new show every day, which we'll talk about why that even is surprising, because you were performing in other shows, you're directing, you're producing, you were doing like a slew of other things, and you still had the time to write a show. So what gave you this big, dumb, glorious idea?
I was going to write a completely different show that was a comedy sketch show, and I was sort of wrangling with the prospect of, I had done 2 one-person shows that were very meaningful, and I didn't really have a big idea for this year, but I wanted to do another show. I mean, every year that I've done the solo show, I've had a lot of commercial success with them and they got good reviews, but they're more valuable for what I grew as in terms of just the process of doing them. So I really kind of never want to give up the slot. And a lot of this has been just asking myself questions as an artist and seeing what the answers are. So I was going to do this whole other show about whether or not shows needed to have meaning, which I still am thinking about, because I don't know if every comedy show needs to mean something. So I was thinking about that, and then I had about, honestly, 4 minutes of material written for that, and had registered it for the Fringe program and photo taken and all this stuff. This was like March or April. And then I somehow got it in my head that basically while I was trying to figure out a bunch of QLab audio cues for this 4-minute bit that I'd written, that I was like, you know what? I almost think it'd be easier for me to just do a new show every day than to figure out these QLab cues. And that was just a really random notion. And then I emailed Assembly to say it was the deadline for the program. The printed program was coming up. And they sent me the proof for it. And I said, could I change it to this description? And I had texted a few friends of mine saying, hey, what do you think about if I wrote a new show every day? Like, what would that be like? And to be fair, about half or more of my friends were like, yo, you should do it. It'd be great. And then some people were like, you should do it. That sounds impossible. You should do it. And no one was really genuinely like, you shouldn't do it. But a lot of people were sort of horrified by the idea. And so the fact that so many people reacted in a way that was like, oh, that sounds crazy. And when I was sending them the email to say, like, could I change my description to this? I got a bunch of butterflies in my stomach. And I was like, ooh, this sounds really scary. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it then. So I sent the email. And then after I sent that email, it felt really weird because I was like, oh, I've really committed myself to something. And then in April, May, June, and July, I didn't really do that much work on it because, I mean, the intent was to really try to I didn't want to come with like 10 shows preloaded. So I just sort of thought about it for 4 months, and then I just went and did it. And it was great. I'm so glad I did it. It worked out really well. I worked on a lot of things that I thought were really exciting, and none of them actually were duds, in my opinion. It was great. I was really happy I did it. Now, like, some people are like, oh, you should do this again next year. Now I'm just like, I don't know if I want this to be my brand.
Right. You're like, that took a lot. Well, and things are marinating in the back of your brain. Did you have thoughts of concepts or themes you wanted to explore in some of those? Or you're like you kind of draw out of the hat, like today's cats, or, you know, like whatever it like whatever you're thinking about?
I had about 3 ideas for the first 3 shows. And then I had other little notions of shows that I've been thinking about doing over the years. It ended up being like the night before I would just pick one of them and do it.
Did you stay up and write like a script, or did you improv? I mean, because you're a gifted improviser. So like, how did you structure it?
I'd say about a third of them were like hard scripted, where I had a specific thing. A lot of those were more commonly things where I was involving other people. So like I wrote a murder mystery for 3 actors. I did one day where we recreated Macbeth in the space. We handed lines of dialogue out to everybody in the audience. There was about a third of them were like pretty tight in terms of like what I was trying to do. I'd say most of the rest were, I had a notion of what I wanted to do, and I had some guidelines written down for me, but there was also some improv around, like, most of them fell more into like storytelling where I knew the beats I wanted to hit. And so there were some lines written. Another skill that I wanted to work on, which I think I improved over the month, was I can pretty confidently improvise in a NPR This American Life style. I don't think I would want to do this show, but I could definitely do a show that was like at the top of the show, have someone tell me a 30-second story and then improvise a 45-minute show that's a This American Life story about that. The storytelling ended up, I would say, being in that ballpark. I had about 5 shows that I had help from other people in terms of one day the cast from Holy Shit came over and we just did an hour of Holy Shit improv. One day I did a little fringe festival within a festival where I had 5 other acts come in and each do 10 minutes. Those were mostly on Sundays. I was sort of taking mental rests on Sundays with that kind of show.
Yeah. I mean, you would have to.
Yeah. So it was all over the place.
I love that though, because audiences are like, I don't know what I'm going to get today. It's the like super fringy thing to do.
I thought it was very fringy. I had one couple that came to all 27 shows. That was fun. They were keeping me honest because I was like, I really can't repeat. At the beginning of the month, I actually did think, well, maybe I'll take one of the shows. If it goes well, maybe I'll revise it and do it again. Maybe I'll have one show be like a review of the other shows or something like that. But every time they would show up, I was like, okay, tomorrow I have to do a new show. I can't cheat at this concept.
I would love to like talk to them. Were they from Edinburgh? Were they Scottish?
They are students at the university that were in their summer break. So they had lots of free time.
Hey, they helped you like get a profit this year.
Yeah. Some friends of mine were like, why don't you comp them into the rest? I was like, I'm not comping them in. They're my guaranteed 2 tickets sold every day.
That's amazing. Okay. Was there anything that came out of it that you're like, this is the next show?
I haven't really reviewed it. I mean, I did a lot of shows that people were like, you should definitely keep doing this one. I don't know if I care about them enough to make them like my concept, but like the murder mystery I wrote was essentially like an improvised murder mystery where the 3 actors didn't know. All 3 of them got a note at the beginning saying that they were not the killer. And then they had backstory and it was just them improvising with each other. And then I would give them more information as the show went on. Eventually, one of them did get handed a note. Oh, you actually are the killer. So that was a really fun format, but it also was a lot of work. There's a few ideas like that I thought, this is fun. I'll have to think about it. I haven't done any kind of post-mortem review of the shows yet. I probably won't do that until next month.
Yeah, because you've been going. You basically went from Edinburgh. You're there in London doing some work. So you've just been going, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we did Scarlett Johansson at Kennedy Center in July, and then I haven't been home since then. So I left home on July 10th, and I won't be home till the Monday before Thanksgiving.
Hey, you're doing it. Full-time theater traveler, man.
Yeah, pretty much.
I would love to see both Scarlett Johansson and Sardines. Let's talk a little bit about Edinburgh. We'll kind of like both host and both guest a little bit because I got to go to Edinburgh this year. It was my first time. I'd never been. And I went as media. And so I kind of got to sit on the other side of the table of like getting pitched to and how do you pick shows and do all that kind of stuff. And then not only did you do 27 hours, you directed shows, produced shows. How many other shows did you have there that you had your hand in?
I presented Woody Fu, One Man John Wick. I co-directed Couplet, Honey Honey Moon Moon with my husband Eric. I directed John Gracie, Big Willie Energy. And then I was performing in Big Baby Wants Candy and Shamilton and my solo show. And then I did 3 Sardines performances as well.
How did you manage all of that while writing a new show every day?
Biggest lift was at the beginning of the month because you have to get in and tech those other shows. So I would say the first week was the hardest, but after that, I'm not in every Baby Wants Candy and Shamilton shows. So I don't know. It didn't seem that hard. Weirdly, this year felt easier than other years. Last year I did 5 shows of Scarlett Johansson in the middle of the month while I was doing Sardines, and I was doing Baby Wants Candy Shamilton, and I was trying to, like the last couple of years I really pushed on marketing. So every guest appearance, every time I could do Baby Wants Candy or Shamilton, I would take. If you do a good show, it's so much easier to hand somebody a flyer for your solo show because they liked you in the other show and they want to take the flyer from you. So last year there was a 5-day period in the middle of the month where I did 4 shows every day. So I did do 20 shows in 4 days in the middle of the month last year, that was really difficult.
That's bonkers.
Yeah. But I mean, also it's like what theater kids want to do. Like I worked a corporate job where I was in the office from 9:30 to 6 every day. You could argue that was less work because I would have, it was kind of office job where if you added up all the time I actually worked, there would be days where I got all of my work done in like 45 minutes. And then the rest of the day was being in meetings, responding to emails, and browsing the web. And I felt that life was way more exhausting than this. Yeah, I'm really torn because like I think doing a solo show is arguably more intense than like being in a play where you're not on stage the whole time. But even then, I kind of like, this is the life we wanted to have, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think there's a difference between doing a scripted show and an improvised show. And then if you add the hustle on top of it, because if you're out there flyering and, you know, if you're new and there's that level of exhaustion. So that's interesting. I feel like if I was just doing improv, I feel like I could go do a bunch of shows back to back.
Yeah, I mean, improv is more like play. So I generally don't find the improv shows to be like super exhausting. They can be exhausting on your voice.
Yes. And just energy wise, right? Like if you're doing a bunch together, but as far as like mental and exhaustion, you know, I think it's different than like a scripted.
I don't know. I'd be interested because I think also if you were in a play, you could argue that it's less exhausting because you're not generating anything. It probably is more depending on what you derive energy from. And you should probably look at scheduling your fringes to reflect that.
That's such good advice. I love it. Let's get into awards. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So I give out awards. This year I have nominations. Last year I just had awards. This year I have nominations plus awards. So we'll have you introduce the award and then I'll say who won. And I'll try not to talk too long about each of the people that won.
Let's start with Fringe AF. The nominees are Perchance to Dream, Jet and Anastasia, Solve Along, A Murder, She Wrote, and The Faustus Project.
I want to talk about all of these because I love them so much. But drum roll, the winner is Perchance to Dream, which has also been rebranded as Jet and Anastasia. This was like a masterclass in acting and improv. It was just the two of them, and they would do an improv scene, and then they would swap places. I saw it multiple times because it was so good.
Where did you see this?
In San Diego. It was one of the coolest things that I've ever seen. And it was super fringy. And I just absolutely loved it. So Jet is fascinating. I would love to bring her to Houston to teach. All right. Next category.
Next is Best Dance. The nominees are Husk/Vessel, Rinse Panic, and Soul to Soul. That's SOLE to SOUL.
I know. One from each of the festivals. Husk Vessel is the winner. Kairos Dance out of Boston. It was the most like visceral, emotional show I have ever like experienced as far. And I don't see a lot of dance. And I just absolutely loved this show. I think this was their first year in their foray to Fringe. I could be mistaken. I apologize if I am, but they did a couple of different Fringes, picked up a ton of awards. And I hope that they continue because they are special dance company. And they had these like swaths of fabric that they danced with that were like unmanageable and just, I'm like moving my shoulders. I don't know how to explain dance. This is why I shouldn't review dance. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I know good shit when I see it. And so this was like, it was just fabulous. It was really, really good.
Awesome. Next, we have Best Family Friendly. The nominees are Honest Fraud, Meg in the Magic Toy Shop, and Monsky Mouse's Baby Cabaret.
All of these were at Edinburgh. They were so good, but I got to go with Meg in the Magic Toy Shop, my favorite Australian that lives in the UK. She is just delightful. And it's a show for 3 to 5 year olds is like its target age range, but adults love it. And she gets everybody involved in it. And it just like reminds you of the joy of play. You know, as adults, we don't play very much. I mean, maybe we do as improvisers, but I think especially when you have little ones, you forget of the joy of it sometimes. And so it was good. And I think she needs to have a TV show. I mean, I think it's that good. It should be a TV show. So that's my pitch.
For Best Writing, we have The Family Crow, A Murder Mystery. We have Ah Ma, Clean Slate, Flick, and The Peter Pan Cometh.
I hate to choose between these because they were all written so well. But my award goes to Clean Slate, which was in Edinburgh. It was Summer Hall. This one I took a chance on. It was one of the most incredible shows that I've ever seen. It's very immersive. I have an immersive show that has a lot of audience participation. This show took that to like a whole other level. She has this storyline, but the audience like creates the other character. It's a relationship between her and this guy, and the audience creates the character. We create it with her as we're watching the show and you watch their relationship develop and then just fall apart. And I don't know how she did it. It was very, very cool show. Loved it. Loved it.
Okay. Next, we have Best Directing. The nominees are Ah Ma, Alone, Charlie's Riot, Fly You Fools, and The Peter Pan Cometh.
Again, so many good shows I could talk about, but the winner, drum roll, is Ama. Happens to be a friend of mine. I'm not giving it to her because she's my friend, but Kathy Lamb Petrie. It's her new show written about her grandmother and dementia, and then also like understanding identity. And so she lives in LA and had to go through all the fires. Thankfully, she didn't lose her house, but it made her think about like, who is she? And as her grandmother's mental state is deteriorating, and just really the directing, they have a chair and a shirt and a girl. And I like vividly saw everything. It was just the director's hand was so clear in it. It was beautiful. Really, really beautiful. All right. What's up next?
Next, we have Best Clowning Physical Theater. The nominees are Snafu's Sexy Puppet Show, Epidermis Circus 2. Ann Zander is Mother, Pickled Republic, Smile, and The Routine.
So many. This is clowns, right? Lots of clowns. It goes to Snafu's Sexy Puppet Show, Epidermis Circus 2. So this is a Canadian artist in Edmonton, Ingrid Hansen, and she's touring this show a lot. If you ever get a chance to see her, you should. It's just her hand. There's a camera that's on. She has like a table set up. So there's a camera. And so you can watch her do everything, but then the camera feeds into a projector. So you see everything up close. And the main star is Baby Tyler, and it's a little doll baby head that she puts on her hand, and then her hand is the body, and Baby Tyler just does all the things. And all you want to do is spend your entire life with Baby Tyler because he is the absolute cutest little thing that you've ever seen. You can go on YouTube and Google and see a little bit of Baby Tyler take a bath in a coffee cup, but he is so cute. And what she's able to do with this plastic doll head in her hand, and then she has a few other things that she does just with her hands and uses them as puppets, is nothing short of miraculous. It's just really, really, really beautiful, beautiful work. So if you ever get a chance to see her, you should see it. It's good. Yeah. All right.
Wonderful. Next, we have Best Spoken Word and Storytelling. The nominees are 52 Stories, Chat Shit, Get Hit, Gem Rolls, Adventures in Canadian Parking Lots, The Crystal Kingdom, and The Underwear Fairy and Other Love Stories.
All right. The winner is Chat Shit, Get Hit. This was in this category, the only one from Edinburgh that I saw that's in this category. The others are from Edmonton and San Diego. But this girl was phenomenal. Just kind of like spoken word. She starts the show barking like a dog. But it's about female anger and rage. And I have never so much in my life wanted to bark like a dog in the middle of a show. I left before she got to, but she's like, I think we're going to have a dog, like a barking circle later this month in the courtyard at Summer Hall. And I was like, you should do it because we all just want to let it out. But it was fabulous. Really good. Up next.
Best Ensemble, Alone, Evie and Alfie, A Very British Love Story, Goose, Orpheus, and The Peter Pan Cometh.
Chris, every time I'm like, it's so hard to choose, but I've got to go with Orpheus, Wright and Granger. It was the first show I saw in Edinburgh. I was just on the edge of my seat. It was absolutely gorgeous. I was talking to them afterwards and they said they don't have blocking. They just play off of each other and like how they like move up and down. And it seems so seamless. And that is quite stunning to me. That shows ensemble of the trust that they have with each other and the way that they work together. It's just absolutely breathtaking.
And I would argue the audience sings in that. So technically, since we were both audience members, we also won this award.
Congratulations, Chris.
Yeah, congratulations. Next, we have Best Comedy. The nominees are Graham and Steen, Stroke of Genius, Pantomime Masturbation Through Performing Arts History, The Faustus Project, Wage Against the Machine, and Wit and Whimsy, an Improvised Regency Romance.
All right. Goes to Graham and Steen. This show, I didn't know who they were. They're your buddies, like Improv Kings, or I don't know, but they're very well known. I didn't know who they were. This girl that they had hired to flyer came up to me and she handed me a flyer and she says, these guys have never done improv before and they're going to do it together. And I was like, you mean they've never done improv or they've never done improv with each other? And she was like, oh, with each other. And I was politely aggressive and said, and I was like, you need to work on your pitch. But I looked at the flyer and it was a good flyer. This is like one of the only times that a flyer worked for me. This girl giving a really bad pitch and made me notice it. And then I was like, hey, this looks like it might be good. I didn't know who they were. And I showed up and I loved it. They were just so funny and delightful. I wanted to go see Ostentatious. I didn't get to see that. And then I started putting the pieces together of like all the other stuff that they do. I was like, oh, that's who these guys are.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing.
Yeah, they were great. Okay.
Next, we have Best Drama. The nominees are Ama, Alone, Colors Run, Dots, and Eleanor's Story, Life After War.
Okay. It goes to Alone. This was at Edinburgh. They were in Assembly the Box. This one was a two-hander, two girls stuck in a spaceship, kind of like in the future. And the spaceship starts to break down and there's nowhere for them to go and get out. And it was in a small space. It was in one of those shipping containers, which I think added to it. But from the moment the lights came up, just how natural they were, like just the acting, I was stunned. I loved it.
All right. Next is Best Solo Show, A Cabaret of Legends, Cartoonopolis, Queen of Fishtown, Clean Slate, and Flick.
All right. Cabaret of Legends. Do you know Tamisha Harris?
No.
You need to know her. This is Tamisha's show. She does another show called Josephine the Play where she plays Josephine Baker. She's done impersonations, but she's an actress. I mean, she does all kinds of stuff. And then this one is where she just does lots of powerhouse Black female singers like Billie Holiday and Tina Turner and Beyonce. And I don't remember who else she did. It was amazing. And then she intersperses her personal story, kind of how it works with their stories as well. There's like lots of similarities with the women and just kind of their personal journeys, but it was great. And she's just a star. The lights come up and your eyes can't get off of her. Even though it's a solo show, you're just like glued because she just has it, whatever it is.
I'll look out for that. Sounds great.
I know. But yeah, she's a fabulous, fabulous performer. And then that is it. But now you said you had an award.
Yeah, I was looking at the awards you're giving out and I saw a slot for an award that I could give out, which is Best Music. I have 3 nominees. One of them is Orpheus. One of them is Honey, Honey, Moon, Moon, which I directed, which I'm going to recuse from winning the award. But they do have great music. I do recommend you check out Couplet on social media. They have a great little social media presence putting up really fun songs. But the last nominee and the winner is, I'm wearing the t-shirt for it. It's Ohio. Over at Assembly, it's a 2-person show by the Bangsons. They're a New York duo, husband and wife, that create songs, and they're really incredible. And it was probably my favorite show I saw at Fringe this year. 2 people talking about religious upbringing in Ohio versus issues of existentialism and also hearing loss as well as musicians, what it's like to face disability.
Amazing. Sad I missed it. I'll have to catch it another time. All right. We're going to end with my last question. You're going to give us a little story of your like best or favorite or thing that you can just remember, awkward or funny Fringe interaction that you've ever had.
Early on in my Fringe career, maybe 3rd year that I'd been there, sort of the thing that I thought was the most exemplary of what I love about Fringe, which was when I first went to Fringe, when you go over there to Edinburgh, there's all these separate producing companies and they have their little areas. So there's Assembly and there's, Just the Tonic and Gilda Balloon and Underbelly and Pleasance and stuff. So, and I remember that I didn't even discover the entire Pleasance courtyard side of Edinburgh Fringe until like the last day of Fringe one year. And I realized, I've been over in my little bubble the whole time. Over here, there's a whole nother world that's been happening the whole month. So I think about 3rd year in, I was doing a show called Thrones the Musical, and a friend of mine was in town who had brought his friend Dave to see this show. Now, earlier in the month, I had wanted to see this show called Ghost Quartet at Summer Hall, which is a musical by the people that wrote Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812. And I thought it was like a college group doing it. Later, I come to find out that it's actually the original cast of Ghost Quartet doing Ghost Quartet at Summer Hall. And one of the people in Ghost Quartet is the friend of my friend from New York, and it was a big Game of Thrones fan and came to see Thrones the musical. So that was Dave Malloy, who wrote Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812. And I met him afterwards, which is great. It was nice meeting him, and I love his work. He saw Thrones on the next to last day. And then on the last day, he said, I just saw this show called My Name is Gideon over at Pleasance Courtyard. And just solely based on his recommendation, I went over to Pleasance Courtyard on the last day and saw this guy Gideon's show. And then that show was incredible. Gideon Irving, who does this solo show, he had this big trunk full of like weird things that could be musical instruments, like just a plastic tube that you could whirl around in a circle and it makes a certain pitch. And by changing the length of the tube, it can sort of have a little siren sound of different pitches. And that show was incredible. Then after the show, he says, "Oh, I know you from New York Improv," which he recognized me like after the show, which is crazy. And then after each show, he would put up this map of the world and you would write on it where you lived. And did you want him to come do a house concert in your town when he was in your town? So cut to maybe 3 years later, he had finally made his way out to the West Coast, and we had Gideon do a house show inside my friend's apartment. And this chain of just people knowing each other and recommending things. And I would never have thought to go to that show unless the serendipity of being recommended these things I'm friends with Gideon, and he's seen my show. I've seen his shows. We try to support each other as artists. And that whole process has felt the most like one of the most fruitful Fringe accidents that's ever happened. And that's what I love about Fringe.
I love it. That is beautiful. And that's the beauty of Fringe and all the connectivity and just meeting other artists, and very cool. All right. Well, Chris, it has been so wonderful to have you on today. I'm so glad we finally synced up.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally got it done.
That's so good. Awesome. All right. Well, Chris is going to be playing Sardines at the Huntington Theater in Boston this October and November. And then you can find him on Patreon at Chris Grace Comedy. So please go check that out and support him so he can do Fringe full time. All right. Well, What the Fringe is produced and hosted by me, Lauren Hantz. This episode was edited by Ben Ellis of Renowned Media, and those sweet tunes you hear are provided by Paul Snyder of Orchestra of Sound, and our logo was designed by Ruby Arnold of Ruby Makes Things. What the Fringe can be found on your favorite podcast platforms and now on YouTube, so be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know when new episodes release. Keep up with What the Fringe on Instagram at whatthefringe_productions, and find us online at whatthefringeproductions.com. Doing a solo show is hard because it is just you up there. And if you slip up on a line or you don't know where you're going, you don't have anybody who's got your back. But, there is always a backup plan.
We handed lines of dialogue out to everybody in the audience.